This is a mirror gospel to the gospel we heard last Sunday, the gospel about the talents in Matthew 25. And there's a bit of nuance in both cases, but there's a lot that is very similar. And as we reflected last Sunday, basically what Jesus is calling us is to be responsible with the many gifts that we have received, to make them flourish, not to envy my brother or my sister because he or she might have received more or less than me, but to rejoice in what I have received and to make that flourish as much as possible. Now there is one thing that sometimes confuses people, and it confused the people at the time of this parable when they said, "Sir, he has 10 coins. Why are you giving him an extra one?" And he replied, "I tell you, to everyone who has, more will be given." This speaks of the virtuous cycle of spiritual richness and the vicious cycle of spiritual poverty. And it is a cycle which is reflected in nature. Once we start to grow in our spiritual life, that generates a certain inertia that makes us grow even more. Once we have that experience of God, everything starts to just fall in place. But for someone who doesn't have that, because they do not have the experience of God, then they stumble in sins, and they have more difficulties and more bitterness, and it becomes a vicious cycle. What is being said here, dear brothers and sisters, it's very important. We must be very careful not to fall into those vices, into those cyclic things that one thing takes to the other and to the other and to the other, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. It is so important to go into this positive and good dynamic of being with the Lord, of being rich in the Lord, that brings rich over richness. And in that sense, we manage to fulfill what God wanted to us, that we are in peace and joyful. As we celebrate this Mass and receive the biggest riches, let it be an occasion to be thankful and to make those riches, those graces flourish.